And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. No, we're going to do lowdown. We're going to do a lowdown despite this being the last show probably of the week. That said, I don't even know if it's the last show of the week because I think we are going to be kind of living on pins and needles this weekend waiting for a pretty big announcement that I believe is going to be coming at some point this weekend. Meetings are still going on. Money is being prepped. Offers are being prepped. I heard, I got word of one such potential offer. So we're going to be talking about that. I still want to talk about Dan Hurley and JJ Redick side by side as potential candidates. So we'll discuss that as well. And then at the end of this, because this is a Friday show, this is a happy hour show, I'm going to be taking your questions. So if you have any questions, get them in, via super comment, by regular comment, whatever it is that you choose to use. Alexa is telling me somebody is at the front door. Maybe it's Dan Hurley, who wants to know what's potentially going on here as well. So Dan Hurley, Lakers, JJ Redick, your questions, all of that stuff right now. All right. So I was walking through Costco. Sorry, my daughter was making all kinds of crazy noises. All right. So I was walking through Costco and I was there with Miles. We needed to pick up some stuff for this weekend. Avery needs to stop using Prosecco boxes as toy chests. So I bought her a cute little carrier for her toys. Got some bananas, all that good stuff. And I got a text from somebody that I trust, somebody that I really, really trust, who said, you need to call me. The reception inside Costco is not very good. So I told that person, okay, but can I have like 5-10 minutes here to wrap things up? Let me step outside. Let me step into my car and we can talk there. So I wrap up the shopping that I needed to do there at Costco, put everything there in the car, turn on the car, get ready to go, call this person back. And this person says, this is the offer that they are hearing right now. This is a giant offer. And now it remains unclear whether or not the Lakers have actually made such an offer to Dan Hurley. But essentially, the crux of the conversation that I had is that the Lakers have prepared themselves and are comfortable with a Godfather offer to the current coach of the UConn Huskies in the ballpark of 8 years, $100 million or so. That would be 12.5 per year. That would make him top, I think, 5 or 6 highest paid coaches in the NBA right now. It would signal that he is going to be kind of the face of the franchise after LeBron James, at least until they figure out who the next superstar face is going to be. But the for those of you who are kind of curious of how quickly this is all kind of coming together, that's an offer that the Lakers are prepared to make or have made themselves comfortable to make to try to coax Dan Hurley away from the University of Connecticut and away from a Huskies basketball program that he has won back-to-back championships with. And they've met with him. They are going to continue to meet with him. And that is the ballpark of the kind of offer that they are hoping would be enough to get him away from there. So let me know what you think. If you guys think it is, if you're thrilled about this, let me know. If you're iffy about, backing up the Brinks truck for, again, somebody who will be a first-time NBA head coach, let me know what you guys think about that. But also, I meant to come on here today. I don't know why. Who was at my front door? I meant to come in here today to basically talk about Dan Hurley and JJ Redick side by side, and I still think that is a worthy conversation. It does appear that Hurley has certainly gained a whole bunch of momentum to supplant JJ Redick as the favorite to take this gig. Again, anytime a team is prepping to make that kind of an offer, that is it makes it pretty clear how they feel about that person and how they feel about other potential candidates. But heading into today, the conversation was very much, internally about JJ and Dan Hurley. And there is now enough momentum behind it to where it's almost moot to talk about this. But like, I do think it's, there are worse ways to spend a few minutes here on this Friday afternoon as you guys are all trying to, you know, just make it to the finish line. That is 5 o'clock Pacific time on a Friday afternoon or a Friday evening. Let's start with Hurley. Actually, you know what? Let's, like the Lakers, start with JJ Redick. JJ, a great communicator, a great mind for basketball, can be an asshole, can be very condescending, depending on, the people that you kind of talk to. Sometimes that is beneficial, right? I always thought that, maybe Frank was a little too nice. Darvin Ham was far too nice, I thought. And it is the Lakers, I think, would like to go in a direction here where whoever they hire, and I don't think it's a coincidence, they have somebody like JJ Redick and that brand of conversation, and you have somebody like Dan Hurley, and we've all seen him coach on the sideline. The Lakers, I think, would like a communicator here who communicates well, but also, is very capable of raising their voice with effectiveness, and makes it known how they, gets their message across to the players that they are coaching. And I think JJ would be very good with that. The other thing here with JJ is that he has that relationship with LeBron James. And the whole reason I have been interested in this guy at all is because for the first time, the Lakers would be hiring somebody who aligns with LeBron, the guy that LeBron wanted in this search. And, I was curious, or I would have been curious to see what that looks like. Now, on the flip side of that, Hurley checks some of those same boxes, doesn't check the box with LeBron. That is not the guy that LeBron has wanted. And that is not necessarily the guy that Clutch has wanted. I'm also told that AD, would have preferred Borrego. But, the hope there is that the Lakers are able to bring him in as an assistant coach. But, I think if you give Dan Hurley an 8-year, $100 million contract, I think part of what that comes with is you have autonomy here to go out and hire whoever you want for your coaching staff. So I think that process there would be very different with Dan Hurley compared to how it would have looked with JJ Redick. That remains to be seen, though. That's obviously putting the cart before the horse. But with Dan Hurley, the first thing that you're going to recognize with Dan Hurley is, holy shit, this guy is a wizard with X's and O's, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. And one of my frustrations with Darvin Ham this last year and over the couple of years that we watched him coach was that the Lakers would find something that was working and then for no reason whatsoever just go completely away from it. That is not how Hurley teams tend to operate, where if UConn figured out something, if they found a scab, if they found some kind of a weakness, in their competition, they kept going back to that thing until that team forced them to ditch that type of an option, or at the very least, they would go away from it with the full intent to come back to it later in the game in a possession that they really need to score. So, I think with Hurley, the thing that I would be most excited about is finally the Lakers would have a coach who like basically the Lakers' approach with their last couple coaches dating back to Vogel while LeBron has been there. Luke doesn't quite count because Luke was already there when LeBron showed up. But basically, when they hired Frank Vogel, they hired a defensive-minded coach, and they basically handed the offense over to LeBron, and they said, "You handle it on your own." And then with Darvin Ham, it was kind of a version of that. They did hire Chris Gent, who had more offensive chops than, frankly, anybody that Frank Vogel had on his staff. So Chris Gent did implement some stuff, and the Lakers did implement some of Chris Gent's stuff. That's the 5-out offense is the thing that comes to mind most there. And then there were some sets and stuff that the Lakers would run, but if LeBron wanted to do something on offense, LeBron was going to do that thing on offense. And this is where I'm really curious what this would look like with Dan Hurley. My dog also very curious how this is going to look with Dan Hurley, where he's going to want to run his stuff, and the Lakers would be right to run Dan Hurley's stuff. And in those moments where, perhaps the situation calls for slowing the game down, it's late in the game, LeBron likes to dribble up there at the top of the key and run a LeBron set, meaning he just, looks at the offense and figures out where he needs to get to and goes about it that way. And in years past, when he was the kind of athlete who could just get by anybody or squeeze himself or power himself into any position that he wanted on a basketball court, that was fine. But over the years, you've seen some slippage athletically from LeBron James, and he isn't always able to turn that corner. And those sets at the end of games don't always necessarily work, that just rely upon LeBron James to figure it out. And I'm really kind of curious what it would look like if Dan Hurley is there on the sideline and he says he maps out a play. And if LeBron doesn't love that play and he goes to, his brand of late game basketball, how those two people would handle that situation. That's going to be something to be interesting to watch. But also importantly, in those 43 minutes before the last 5 minutes of a game, I'm excited to see the Lakers basically going about making LeBron's life easier on him through something potentially more effective than personnel. And what this means for the personnel on this team also is worth discussing too. But yeah, I was looking, I've been thinking about this. And one of the things that I've always kind of hoped for while LeBron has been in the Lakers organization is for the Lakers to kind of recognize the way that you make life easier on LeBron James is by, giving him more space to work with, bringing him shooters. Yeah, you do want some other creators on the court there who can do things that allow LeBron to kind of take a play off while he's standing there on the game. And that there's value there too. But if you bring in Hurley and you have the right personnel and everybody commits to the X's and O's that Hurley brings with him, that is a way that you could make life a little easier on LeBron James while he is still there on the court and a part of those sets that the Lakers would be running there. One thing that comes to mind is putting LeBron in the short roll, letting him set a screen and letting him get downhill without having to turn the corner on a defender, and now facing a defense that's a man down. Like those are the kinds of things that I would like to see the Lakers do more consistently than they did with Darvin Ham. And I saw that Tim Kranjus of the Lakers Exceptionalism Pod has been kind of mapping and charting out what Hurley's offense has looked like and how often they were calling sets and all of those things. And the percentage of plays that they were running a set is astronomical. Almost, I think, in some cases, double of the frequency that the Lakers were doing that with Darvin Ham. That's something that I would be really intrigued by. So look, I think JJ was the function of an idea, the function of, hey, let's see how things go here. If we do partner with LeBron and we do hire somebody that LeBron would kind of vouch for. And then, if you're comparing the two side by side, Hurley and JJ, it's almost not even fair because JJ just doesn't have that coaching acumen that Dan Hurley does. He has coached, the only box he hasn't checked on his resume, or the only area in Wikipedia that is now empty, is how his system and how his program would function in the NBA, and how his personality would function in the NBA. And it seems like the Lakers are curious enough to figure that out, to prep the kind of astronomical offer that we're talking about here. But yeah, like I said, if you're comparing JJ and you're comparing Dan Hurley, and those are the two finalists here going into this, it really isn't fair to compare JJ to Dan because he just doesn't have that experience. Doesn't mean that eventually JJ can't get that experience. Doesn't mean that, by the way, JJ won't be good at this. I tell you, there are enough people who know enough about basketball who have vouched for JJ Redick to me over the last few weeks that I have started to kind of wrap my head around. Well, I could maybe see it. I could see, JJ at least becoming a good head coach in and of its own right, of his own right, but not necessarily matching up with the timeline that the Lakers are currently on right now. By the way, the same can be said potentially of Dan Hurley. By the way, the timeline here might just be impossible. And that might be one thing that the Lakers are kind of weighing here as they prepare to hire a college head coach into a professional head coaching gig, is they might be saying like, well, we'll give it the good old college try. No pun intended there, with Dan Hurley while LeBron and AD are there. And then we are very well set up in terms of coaching, where Hurley will have those couple years of experience. He'll understand more about how the league works for that time, if it comes or when it comes that LeBron steps away. And the Lakers want to be prepared for that too. Now, I'm really kind of curious what that looks like. Again, how you guys feel about it, and we'll continue to kind of come back to this, I'm sure, over the course of the weekend while we wait for the decision to be made. But as it stands right now, again, the Lakers are prepared and are comfortable with a 9-figure offer for Dan Hurley, and we'll see what comes next. The other part of this that I think, like, I'm not going to spend more time on whether or not he was their first choice or anything like that. It's moot. It doesn't matter anymore. But the one part about this that I am really kind of curious about is what this means for the type of personnel decisions that the Lakers are going to be making over the next few weeks, couple months, right? As they build out their roster and head into next year. One thing that caught my eye when Adrian Wojnarowski was writing about Dan Hurley and the possibility of the Lakers potentially making this kind of an offer to him is he mentioned Austin Reeves, he mentioned Max Christie, and he mentioned Rui Hachimura all by name and called them something of a young core. Now, they aren't particularly. Max Christie is fairly young. Reeves is not young by young core standards, and Rui Hachimura is not young by young core standards. And heading into next year, all three of those guys are going to be on their at least second contracts in the NBA. But it did catch my attention that those guys were mentioned in Woj's reporting there, and it did make me wonder if that does kind of signal the way that the Lakers are going to go about this upcoming offseason, where heading into it, I was pretty sure that the Lakers were going to be getting ready to make some kind of a crazy offer for Trae Young or for Donovan Mitchell or for Mikal Bridges or anything like that. And then the longer that we got away from the NBA season and the way that the market has seemed to kind of shuffle out to this point, it has been pretty clear that the Lakers are now probably more likely to make some marginal tweaks, right? Turning Rui Hachimura into a wing who you are more confident on both sides of the ball. Turning, Jared Vanderbilt potentially into the kind of wing that you are more confident with on both sides of the ball. And, that seems to be a version of the off season that I thought they were heading towards anyway. And now that you hire Dan Hurley, which feels more, if you hire Dan Hurley, feels more like a look towards the future. If that's how you're looking at this, then I think it makes some sense to maybe consider that the Lakers would not trade all three of those first round picks, with the idea of keeping some of your powder dry for the post LeBron era. Doesn't mean you're not going to try, doesn't mean you're not going to, send feelers out there into the market and see what you could potentially get for 1, 2, or 3 picks potentially. Um, I do tend to think that if they do bring in Hurley, like if they would have hired JJ, I would have been pretty confident that they were going to go all in this upcoming off season and go, really try to win over these next couple years. And it, again, it isn't to say that they aren't going to be trying to win, but I would have been more confident if JJ was the guy, that the Lakers would be competing this upcoming season, and next season, and that would have been their focus here. But if you hire Hurley, I feel like it ups the chances that you use his understanding of the college game and go out and draft somebody that he has either seen play on his team or play or coached against or whatever. And like I feel like that number 17 pick becomes a little, my idea for it becomes a little bit more flexible, where if it was JJ, I would have been pretty surprised if they took somebody and kept that player with that pick. If it was with it potentially being Hurley, I do think that them using that pick on a player and keeping that player is now more, or would be on the table more so than it would have been had they gone in that other direction. And then, their future picks and stuff like that. Like, if you're going to spend $100 million potentially on a head coach, you want that head coach to have a decent chance at having a competitive team, on the back half of, or for the majority of that contract, because we're thinking LeBron's probably only going to play 2 years. That means for 6 of those 8 years, if you go too far all in while LeBron is in your organization, you risk putting Hurley in an impossible spot for those final 6 years of his contract. So, yeah, I'm really kind of curious, what this would mean for their personnel, and what you think it should mean for their personnel, right? I don't know. Like Antoine Broom, I think this is a fair point. You can't build now and for later. LOL, you're all in or you're not. Like in this league, you're seeing, because of, with Boston, they went all in. They went and traded for Kristaps Porzingis. They traded for Derek White. They've done these. They traded for Drew Holiday. They went all in to try to win, and they look like they are the prohibitive favorites now to win a championship this year. The Dallas Mavericks went all in to put themselves into this position too, and it's starting to feel like, if you're going to win a championship, you're gonna wind up having to go all in either that year or the year before it. And I'm just kind of wondering, if you're hiring Dan Hurley, is that something he's going to be all that interested in for the back half of his contract? I don't know. The guy is very clearly about winning whenever he has an opportunity, and you're probably not going to have very many better opportunities to win championships than you do while you have LeBron James and while you have Anthony Davis. So maybe that's the inclination there as well. But yeah, I do kind of wonder what a Hurley hiring would signal in terms of the personnel moves that the Lakers would be getting ready to make this season. My last note on here is that there were some whispers going around that LeBron and Clutch were blindsided by Hurley's inclusion or the aggressive motion towards trying to hire Dan Hurley here. And I heard it from enough people that I wanted to ask some Lakers people how they felt about it. And the Lakers people that I spoke to indicated that it doesn't, like, that just doesn't jive with the way that they're going about and the things that are at play in this upcoming offseason, where, like, I know that the Lakers headed into this summer very, very confident that LeBron James is going to opt out and re-sign for another couple year contract, and that would probably be the last couple of years of his career. That said, like, you can be confident, but you don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to be stupid. And if the Lakers did go out and make this kind of an offer, and they were that kind of aggressive to go out and try to get Dan Hurley without talking to LeBron James when he has this kind of a decision ahead of him, and the risk there is that you hire this guy and you don't hire the podcaster or the LeBron's co-host, the guy that LeBron I'm told still would prefer. If you risk all of that and then he leaves, then you really kind of screwed yourself, right? And so the Lakers people that I spoke to indicated today that LeBron had some idea about this. Hurley's name didn't just pop up. His name has been making its way around the organization now for the last week or so. And LeBron knows about it, and the Lakers wouldn't move forward with Hurley if they thought that it would risk LeBron leaving over it. And I don't get the sense that LeBron would leave over the Lakers hiring Dan Hurley instead of JJ Redick. So that's kind of the final note that I have before I get into your questions. All right, so let's dive on into the super comments here. First things first, we get to play this. All right, Amon Brar, 1992 writes, knowing the contract for Hurley, is there a possibility that JJ said no to a contract? Was there a figure for JJ? I don't think the conversation ever got far enough to with JJ that they were talking about figures. It doesn't appear that way based off of my understanding of the situation. I think that the Lakers would have liked for it to get there so that they could maybe start to plan. But the sense that I have really kind of gotten over the last 24, 36 hours or so, excuse me, is that the Lakers wanted to take next steps, and with the whole finals and ESPN thing, you're just kind of waiting, and they took that time to reach back out to some candidates that they thought about. Excuse me. They took that time to reach back out. Oh my gosh. To some candidates. And this is where, like, again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, or really any, frankly, but like that whole Hurley has been the target from the get-go thing. Essentially, what it sounds like is that the Lakers had him as like a top tier target where they liked the idea of him. They wanted to see what that would look like. And they thought maybe, just maybe, and kind of came back to him over the course of this as Hurley wasn't offered an extension by UConn. The Lakers figured they had a little bit more of a chance at this guy than they thought at the beginning of the process, and something that they found out while they awaited JJ and ESPN to figure their stuff out. So I think here with JJ and what kind of a contract that would have looked like, it wouldn't have taken as much as it looks like it's going to take to hire Hurley. And they would have used some of those funds that they didn't use, they didn't maybe have to use on JJ to really beef up the staff around JJ. But as with Hurley, I'm really kind of curious. Like, I don't think they are going to use all of their coaching budget just on the head coach, and they're going to tell him, all right, so you have $5 to go, like everybody else that you hire for your staff is going to be making minimum wage. I don't think it's quite that bad, but the resources here are not unlimited, and we'll see kind of what some of those limits look like as you approach more of them. But first things first, you need to get Hurley to agree to the contract. All right, the next contract here comes from BTS Dance Studio. Rob gets flowers for this great plan, the Dan plan. I hope that it has a better name. Whirling and twirling for Hurley. I don't know. But look, where I will give Rob his flowers is, and I said this on yesterday's show, and I'll say it again here. When you have as small a front office as Rob does and as the Lakers do, it allows you to keep stuff like this very, very close to the vest. And by the way, like, it might be that the figure that I heard here is not actually in the cards, and that the Lakers aren't prepared to, like, I'm going to cop to my own limitations as a reporter and as a podcaster here. I am not Adrian Wojnarowski. Woj has a great relationship with Rob Pelinka, and I think that on Lakers things and on the final decisions that the Lakers make, Woj is the guy to trust. What I am hearing on this front is that type of an offer, those kinds of figures and all of that, and what it looks like when pen hits paper, you might look different. But where I do think Rob deserves his flowers here is that he keeps everybody guessing that he wants to keep guessing. An example of this is, I've said this all along, I have league sources and I have Lakers sources, right? And what people think about the Lakers around the league is worthwhile context to me, and that does paint me a picture of what some of the Lakers' options might be. That's not where I go for actual information on what the Lakers are preparing to do, but I think that that it helps me build out the menu of avenues that the Lakers might take, just talking to people around the league, because like at the trade deadline, the Lakers have to talk to teams about names, and that's how you build, like when you talk to those other teams and sources from those teams about the names that the Lakers are asking about, it allows me to build out my menu from which I'm going to start building what the deadline might actually look like, or what the offseason might actually look like. And then, with Lakers sourcing, say, hey, I've heard that you guys are calling about this guy. I've heard that you're calling about this guy. Is anything actionable? Blah, blah, blah. And that's when I start to whittle down what is real. What do I need to write about? What do I need to prep to podcast about? Which types of names do I have to keep an eye on here over the course of whatever transaction season that we're talking about, right? And even the Lakers people that I normally, that I get information from and are normally very, very confident about what is going on in their organization, even those people were surprised when Hurley came up and the Lakers were apparently moving so aggressively to go and try and hire Dan Hurley. And that really spoke to me that, like, okay, and by the way, a backdrop to all of this, I think the Lakers got really, really sick of the amount of information that was leaked last season. And I think the Lakers are really trying to, plug a lot of those holes. And I think this whole Hurley situation is a great example of the Lakers doing so effectively, which means my job got harder. But that's good on the Lakers. Like, organizations don't function all that well if they're leaking too much. But yeah, I think, we need to see them actually close the deal here with Dan. We need to see what the Lakers are going to be willing to do for Dan with his assistant coaching staff. We need to see what the Lakers do with personnel to fit Dan's vision and all of those things. But as it stands right now, I do think Rob deserves his flowers for the specific thing of, like, keeping assholes like me on my toes. And like, trust me, I have spent the last 36 hours on my toes. All right, the next question here comes from Matthew. If they get Hurley, how do you think it impacts the way that they attack the offseason? All right, so I talked about this a little bit. Do you think they are more reluctant to give up draft capital since he likes to develop young talent? I think one thing that Woj has been talking about a lot, and I think this feels like something he is saying as analysis. He's offering up as analysis, but I think he's hearing it from the Lakers that one of the frustrations that I've heard about Darvin Ham since they fired him was that, like, the Lakers, they didn't do enough winning, but they also didn't do enough developing. And you need to do one of those two things, right? Like you need to like either you win or you develop your young guys. And I think the young guy in particular that the Lakers thought they missed an opportunity with this year is Max Christie, and they want to see him develop. They think he has a really bright future ahead of him. The Lakers, obviously they have Jalen Hood-Schifino, who, in part due to injuries, but also in part due to circumstance, he didn't develop over the course of the year. I think the Lakers weren't thrilled about that either. So I think the Lakers, if in really pursuing Dan Hurley as aggressively as it sounds like they are, what the Lakers are basically doing here is they're signaling, we are either going to win or we're going to develop, and preferably both. And I think, like, the thing that college coaches have to do, you only get a few, with great college players, you only have them for about a year or so. So you have to develop a program around those players, and you have to win in that short window that you have them. And I think that's one thing that the Lakers are pretty excited about here with Hurley, is that he has been able to develop his guys. He gets guys to buy into his program. He gets guys to buy into his vision. He gets guys to play really effing hard. Now we'll see how that messaging goes with NBA players compared to college players, but that is certainly a strong suit of Hurley's that the Lakers are going to be trying to take advantage of. That being really focusing on developing the guys that the Lakers have right now into the roles that make the most sense for them. And I think this, like, I would be really excited about this if I was Max Christie, if I was Austin Reeves, if I was maybe Jalen Hood-Schifino. We'll see. But like if I'm a younger Laker, if I'm a youngish Laker, and the Lakers go out and get Dan Hurley, I feel pretty confident that my career is at least going to, like, have some direction to it. All right. Final comment here before my voice gives out for the weekend. Nathan Mark, you think 10 years, 120, or 5 years, $80 million, long years versus big money? I think the Lakers want Dan Hurley to sign a really, really long, fruitful contract. I they it isn't to say that they didn't have this in mind when they hired Frank. It isn't to say that they didn't have this in mind when they hired Darvin. But I think, you know, with those two coaches, they have felt very fungible. They have felt very replaceable over the entirety of their times with the Lakers. And I think, Rob Pelinka has been able to operate without ever really having to worry about his seat getting warmer. And I think ideally the Lakers want a head coach to step in here and operate under those same kind of circumstances. The problem is that is not how this tends to go. That is not how coaching works in the NBA. But the Lakers are going to make a fiscal investment into Dan Hurley. They are going to make a very organizational investment into Dan Hurley. And, it's trying out something different. And I'm really kind of curious how it plays out. You just have to hope and you have to know that this is definitely the guy who is going to take you into that next era. And look, based off of what he's done at UConn, he seems to be that guy. All right, I'm going to scroll through. Whew, man, yeah, this is a lot of comments from Twitter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through the comment section here after I'm done and see if I find any questions that I maybe didn't get to. And my plan here is basically to hop back on. I'm clearing out this weekend. Fortunately, this is happening before I head out on vacation next weekend. So I'm guessing that we're going to get some big news either tonight or tomorrow or Sunday. And the Lakers want this figured out by the time we roll into Monday. So whenever we get that breaking news, I'll hop back on here. I'll talk about it. And until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit all of the buttons that, make me feel good. Tell your friends you love the show. Tell your enemies you hate it. And I will talk to you sometime soon. Have a good one, everybody.